Das joined the Surajmal Saha College, Puri, as a lecturer in philosophy in the year 1994 and continued there till 2016. Then he was posted as a lecturer in Noyagad Autonomous College by Government of Odisha after being qualified for SSB. Now he is acting at the head of the Department of Philosophy in Noyagad Autonomous College. And Sri Pramod Kumar Das is at present working as President Chinmoy Mission, Puri, Chairman Ustam Intellectual Forum, Puri, and convener of Philosophy Family, and has organized hundreds of seminars and intellectual programs so far. Sri Das is very known to the students and teachers of philosophy for his innovative style of teaching and creativity. Now I welcome Sri Pramod Kumar Das to this webinar. We have with us also Dr. K. Umnaran Rao, Assistant Professor of Philosophy, Niranjan Government Women's College, ASCA, who will be moderating today's webinar in both the sessions. I welcome Dr. Rao. I also welcome Sri Debasi Sarangi, who has played a vital role in philosophy family to record the lectures and share them to YouTube. Now, it's my privilege to welcome and invite Sri Pramod Kumar Das to deliver his speech on the concept of a universal doubt and the existence of self in the philosophy of Descartes. Welcome to Professor Pramod Kumar Das.
Respected, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are, yes,
Am
sir,
I
you are
audible?
audible.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, audible.
Respect. Thank you. Respected Dr. Kailash Chandra Maharana, my big brother. Respected Dr. K. M. Narayana Rao, my friend. Dear Debasi Sarangi, my younger brother of this family. Very esteemed participants who have joined in this webinar. Since 5 days, we were discussing about history of philosophy, right from ancient Greek philosophy, Greek period to the modern period. That was a very beautiful journey, and very eminent scholars, speakers, orators delivered their talks on the history of philosophy. In course of their discussion, in course of their speech, they have elaborately discussed about the metaphysical, the epistemological, and ethical aspects of philosophy, right from the ancient period to the modern period. Descartes is silent about the history.
It's not audible.
Connectivity is
Pramod
lost.
Kumar Das.
Pramod sir is not there in the list. His connectivity is lost. He'll be joining. He's not there in the list. Well, see, let me check. He's not there in the list. Connectivity is lost.
Yeah, yeah.
Let us wait for some time to join. Let us allow some time so that he joins. Oh, whether he knows that or not. He's there. He's there. Now he's
Hello,
there.
hello.
Again, connectivity is lost. Now, okay, he's there.
So now today our topic is Descartes' philosophy. We shall discuss universal doubt and existence of self. Descartes was silent about the history. He wanted to start philosophy de novo. Let us close the history of philosophy here. Whatever has been discussed about metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and stop all types of discussions. Whatever has done has done. Now we shall start philosophy from the beginning. So this is the uniqueness of Descartes' philosophy. That does not mean the history has no meaning. But Descartes wanted to start philosophy newly. He called it philosophy de novo. I shall speak that in many regards, Descartes is equal to all other philosophers like Spinoza, Leibniz, Locke, Berkeley, Hume, Kant. But there is a particular uh, point in which we find the uniqueness of Descartes. In which points Descartes is similar to others? Descartes believes in the existence of substance. Mainly, there are three substances which are discussed in philosophy. They are God, mind, and body. In the broad sense, if we say, there are three views, three theories, that is God, world, and mind. Particularly, we can say God, mind, and body. Descartes believes in God as a substance, and mind and body as subsidiary substances, but or dependent substances. Spinoza also believes in God, mind, and body. Leibniz believes in God, mind, and body. Locke believes in God, mind, and body. Berkeley believes in God and mind. Here matter is absent. And Hume rejected all these three, God, mind, body. So in acceptance and in rejection, there is a similarity in discussion from Descartes to Hume. And in Kant, the meaning of substance is changed. Here, substance is a category of understanding. So now the question comes: then what is the credit of Descartes? If what Descartes has said, if all other philosophers have said in the similar way, or all other philosophers have focused on the similar concepts, then what is the credit of Descartes? Descartes repeated the same thing what has been discussed in the history of philosophy. Here comes the uniqueness of Descartes, that he introduced the method of philosophy, a new method of philosophy. So Descartes is especially famous for his method. What was his method? Now, his method was a rational method. He defined actually what rationalism is. The meaning of rationalism is understood um, in different ways by different philosophers. Now, atheists also claim that they are rationalists. In that sense, Descartes' definition of rationalism is not that. According to Descartes, rationalist is one. It is not the. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Achha. According to Descartes, a rational mind is that mind which is free from all types of doubts, all types of uncertainties, all types of confusions, all types of questions, all types of contradictions. That the thought, human thought, should be clear and distinct. How? Not like mathematics. It is clear and distinct as mathematics. A plus b whole square is equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab. In this equation, there is no spark of doubt. The conclusion logically or mathematically follows the premises. Whatever we assume in the premise, that follows the conclusion. The conclusion is followed by the premises. And in mathematics, we find in mathematics and in geometry, we find that sort of clear and distinct knowledge. So Descartes said, according to Descartes, it is a great venture. It is not an easy task. And who will bail the cat? This is the question. If one will become a rationalist, and if one will focus on clear and distinct knowledge, clear and distinct ideas, then he has to take many types of risk. First of all, he will close the door of history. Whatever is said in the history, that should be closed. Whatever is said by the teachers, scriptures, by any authority, all the doors are closed. And it is a very heroic attitude. If these doors are not closed, then somehow or other, the mind is not free. The mind is confined to a preoccupied idea, or is confined to a particular type of theory or view. We say followers, Plato's followers, or Aristotle's followers. Philosophers should not be a follower. Buddha's followers. Why should one follow others? If I have a mind, I should think freely. Why should I be a follower of Gautam Buddha? Why should I be follower of Sankaracharya? Why should I be? If I follow anybody, then I shall become at least a follower. Descartes does not want to be a follower. Descartes wants to be a philosopher. Descartes wants to be rational. A rational mind never follows anything. Whatever he, a rationalist takes, does not take everything granted. So Descartes introduced a method of doubting everything. Doubting everything. That what can we doubt? Now we can doubt that can be doubted. The process is, if you really want to accept anything, if you want to accept anything, then you have to reject everything. Suppose you love someone. Then how can you know that this person really loves you? So put him or her into different tests. If in spite of all, not instead of all, if in spite of all he or she loves you, then you will be sure that you are loved. If someone loves you by this condition or that condition, if this condition is absent, then he or she does not love you, then that is not love. So if our idea is vitiated by, is restricted by, is affected by a simplest spark of doubt or confusion, then that is not the clear or distinct idea. That cannot be accepted at all. Then let us see what can be doubted. Descartes had a long list. Descartes had a long list of things which can be doubted. Scriptures. What do we say that scriptures in Indian context, we say the scriptures are apurusaya. They speak the eternal truth, etc., etc. So we should follow scriptures. Yes, we should follow. That's right. But if we'll think of Descartes, if we'll discuss about the nature of a rational mind, then the doors of scriptures should be closed. Because why? Why? Because scriptures even give contradictory suggestions, contradictory views. One scripture says that Jagat is mithya, another scripture says Jagat is satya, another scripture says that Jagat is only truth. Another scriptures, so different scriptures prescribe and describe even contrary and contradictory views. So which view is correct? Which scripture is correct? If Sankaracharya is correct, then why there is Ramanuja? If Ramanuja is correct, why there is Buddha? So there are many philosophers, Nana Muni, Nana Mata, many philosophers, many views. So scriptures can be doubted, Teachers, these such utterances may not sound good, but that is the promise of a rational mind. If I shall claim that I am rational, then I should think rationally. That why at all I shall be a follower of a scripture, a follower of a teacher. What, for example, one says that Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahma Jiva Brahma na parho. This is merely statement. This is not your realization. It is realized by Sankaracharya. It is not realized by a scholar. Intellectual knowledge is not knowledge proper. Realization, the knowledge which is based upon the realization, that is real knowledge. So what is realized by Sankaracharya, that is not my realization. So I am just following Sankaracharya, or for the examination purpose or PhD thesis purpose, I just repeating the statement of Sankaracharya that Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahma na paro, etc., etc. PhD thesis and many articles are just suggesting such statements. That is not the outcome of a rational mind. What can be doubted further? Now, anything that we perceive through our sense organs, that can be doubted. All types of perceptions can be doubted. Similarly, all types of conceptions, thinkings can be doubted. I had once told that there is a difference between thought and thinking. Thought and thinking. So thought is formless. Thought is formless. When it is converted to a thinking, to a thinking, there comes different types of thinkings, formal thinkings, forms of thinkings. So which form of thinking is right? Theism is a form of thinking. Atheism is another form of thinking. Which form of thinking is right? So just return to the native stance of our minds. Descartes says that doubt, doubt, and doubt, and doubt what can be doubted. What can be doubted? That means Descartes is focusing on the possibility of doubting. Possibility. Actually, you doubt something. That is when you actually doubt something, it is factual. It depends upon your capacity of doubting. But here we are discussing about the possibility of doubting. Is it possible to doubt? Yes. So reject it. Doubt it. Is that possible to doubt? Yes. Then reject it. So this is the process. This is the process which Descartes introduced, and his doubt is called the mathematical doubt or universal doubt. Universal doubt or universal doubt means the impartial doubt. That when we doubt, and the principle of doubting is applicable to everything. It is not that I shall become partial, that I shall doubt this, I shall doubt my school teacher, and I shall not doubt my university professor. No. Doubt should be impartial. I shall doubt science, I shall doubt religion, I shall doubt philosophy. Let us doubt. But doubting is not the end. Doubting is the beginning of any inquiry. In logic, whenever we, in induction also, whenever we make any generalization, we take the help of a hypothesis. That is also a type of doubting. Suppose a murder has been committed. So the police, what does the police? The police arrest some people in doubt, but they are not culprits. They are not the murderers. The police arrest some people on doubt. Then verification starts, inquiry starts. Then he comes to the police comes to the conclusion, no, these three are innocent, only the fourth man is the murderer. So that is a natural process of, it is not only that Descartes, only Descartes speaks of doubt, but doubting or making hypotheses are very familiar, are very very natural in our understanding. So Descartes, and this in Indian philosophy also, when we say that something is not describable, we can describe it in the negative way. That is neti, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. This is a process of thinking which is very native to human understanding, both in both East and West. So now come to the to the point that can everything be doubted? This is the question. Everything can be doubted except one thing, and that is the doubter. If the if the doubter if the doubter is doubted, then all the doubts will be falsified. Okay, mane, suppose a doubter doubts thousands of things, and at the last he will declare that even I am doubted, even I am doubted, then that doubter will become a touter. He does not doubt, rather he doubts. He's a touter, not doubter. If he is a really doubter, then he should promise, he should claim, yes, I am not a doubter, I am a doubter. In Buddhism, if we shall compare Descartes with Gautam Buddha, Buddha said that everything is momentary, everything is momentary, everything is momentary. Then the question asked to Buddha that if everything is momentary, the person who is aware of the fact that everything is momentary, is he permanent? Suppose I am Buddha, or I am a person who says that everything is momentary. The question comes, the person who says that everything is momentary, everything is subject to change, that person is momentary or not? Buddha says, yes, that is also momentary. This is not the position of Descartes. Descartes says, everything is doubted except the person who doubts. Except the person who doubts. That means there is a substantive stance in our process of thinking. Buddha missed that. Buddha said, suppose we shall put Descartes' philosophy in Buddhism, then this can be said in this way that everything is doubted, including the doubter. Things which are doubted are momentary, and the doubter who doubts is also momentary. But this is not the position of a Descartes. Descartes says there is a substantive support. There is something which doubts. Here comes a we can say it a mathematical supposition, mathematical condition that mathematically, logically, we cannot deny, we cannot reject the possibility that there must be a doubter who doubts. If we say that even the doubter is doubted, then whatever he has doubted are not the matters of doubt. Because the source is, if the source is in conflict, then the product cannot be warranted. So Buddha says the doubter cannot be doubted. Only, and that is the fundamental principle. That is the clear and distinct knowledge. So by rejecting everything, Buddha concluded that one thing cannot be rejected, that is the doubter who doubts. That is the act of doubting. That is the act of thinking. So who is a rationalist? The rationalist is one who is very much conscious, who is very much aware of the nature of thinking. The man who thinks should be aware of his thinking. The person who is thinking, if he is not aware of thinking, then he is not a rational. He is not rational. His mind is not rational. Descartes is speaking of the perfect mind. What is a perfect mind? A perfect mind has three specific features. Promptitude of thought. Promptitude of thought. Thought should be that is called promptitude of thought. Promptitude means what can we say? Promptitude of thought means, man, it is ever ready. It is ever ready for the next implication. Promptitude. It is very prompt. From prompt promptitude. So promptitude of thought means it is ever ready for the next implication. If you say something, you should be ready for its implication. Thought is implicative by nature. Suppose you utter one sentence, you should be ready for its implication. If the mind the mind which is aware of this faculty, this attitude, that is a perfect mind. And second one is the clear and distinct imagination. When we imagine something, that imagination should be free from all types of clouds, as we do not see moon through the cloud. When the clouds pass through moon, we cannot see moon. Similarly, the clouded mind cannot imagine clearly, distinctly. And the third one is that fullness and readiness of memory. Memory should be very much prompt. Suppose someone faces an accident, and he or she comes to the coma stage. The first what he or she has lost, there immediately he or she has lost the memory. When we continue to say something, suppose now I am talking, so I am just representing my memory, which is full and clear. It is not that from a clouded memory, one cannot speak. The memory which the speaker has, not me, any speaker, that memory should be very much clear, and that should be full. Full means mature memory. There should not be any loss of memory. So Descartes' rational mind is of this type of mind. Promptitude of thought, and one thing I said, that fullness of a memory, and the other thing I said, that thought, memory, and imagination, clear and distinct imagination. Descartes says, let us start philosophy with these perfect minds. Let us start this philosophy with these perfect minds. Then we shall see what the result comes. What type of result comes. So his method is also called intuitive method. Intuitive method. By intuition, Descartes means the clear vision of intellect. The clear vision of intellect. When the intellect gives us the clear vision of the intellect is intuition. The intellect should be free from all sorts of doubts, confusions, and contradictions. So intuition is that source of thinking which is free from, which gives a very clear vision. The vision is very clear. Yes, I see it. So So at a result, Descartes found that the thinker that I think therefore I exist. This is the clear and distinct statement which cannot be doubted at all. Because my intuition permits it. The intuition, even Descartes' method, in the strict sense, we cannot say deductive. Deductive will come in the second stage. It is intuitive method. Even deduction is subject to fallacy. In deductive logic, we have come across many types. In both deduction and induction, we come across different type of fallacies. If you wrongly deduct the conclusion from the premises, then the syllogism or the argument will be fallacies. So deduction is also not the first order. The first order is intuition, which is free from error. If your intuition is clear and distinct, then only your deductions will be perfect, will be free from fallacy. This is what Descartes thinks, and not only thinks, he shaped his philosophy, he designed his philosophy very courageously also in this way. That was a time, very unfortunately I am saying, that one in the history of philosophy, philosophy has been bargained, has been compromised by politics. Suppose in Western philosophy, many philosophers have changed their views with the fear of the uh, Pope of the Church. They do not. A philosopher does not want to establish the concept of a God in his philosophy, but he is bound to do that. For example, Berkeley and many philosophers have done this, but Descartes is free from that. Descartes very courageously rejected everything. In Indian tradition also, the same thing is said that our mind should be free from all types of preoccupied thoughts. Don't occupy any thought. Don't follow your thoughts, even of your own thoughts. Whatever you had thought in your childhood, you may correct it, and you must correct it in your mature age, because there are because you have learned many things from your experience. So not only Descartes said it only from his rational aptitude, but also from his experience of life. You know, so I shall add, and I shall say, Descartes is not a formal rationalist. When Descartes is rejecting all sources of knowledge, then Descartes is very much concerned with his experience of life. From his experience of life, he has seen the contradictions. He has seen the defects. From his experience, he has known that sense experiences deceive us. As in dream state, we all the things are really illusory. They are not real. Maybe that we are always all the time we are dreaming. Where from Descartes came to know this? Descartes came to know this from his experience. So it does not mean that that the rationalist philosophers are only rational, and they are far away from experience. Experience is common to both rationalist, empiricist. Experience is common to man. It's common to man. From experience, man learns. So Descartes studied mathematics, Descartes was a scientist also, Descartes was a mathematician, and from that he also came to know that I shall explain the world through mathematics. So to Descartes, the objects around us, whatever we see around us, that is not the empirical object, that is the mathematical object. Mathematical object means the objects that we see around us, we do not accept their existence blindly. Their existence follow from from my first premise or first assumption. Mathematical connection into when propositions are logically connected, when propositions are logically connected, we get a conclusion. If the premises are not logically connected, we cannot get the conclusion. So that connectivity between the propositions is intuition according to Descartes, because suppose we say all men are mortal, then I am saying Ram is a man, all men are mortal and Ram is a man. They are different in meaning. They are different in meaning, but there is a logical connection between them which follows that Ram is mortal. If we say all men are mortal and this cow is white, then we cannot say Ram is mortal. So apart from the difference in meaning of different propositions, there is a logical connectivity between propositions. That means all the statements we utter in our daily life, that should be logically connected. That should be logically connected. So Descartes says the objects I see around us, that is mathematical objects. That is a mathematical product. I do not blindly assume that tree is the tree. So this is a conceptual discussion. So critics will say, so I toss the tree. So how can I say this is mathematical object? In that sense, Descartes does not say. The existence of tree outside my mind, the tree exists outside my mind, but the existence of that tree is ascertained from my previous statement, previous thought. It is logically connected. So Descartes, so now you see from this intuitive aptitude, deduction comes. How? Now, if there is doubt, there must be a doubter. So this is a deduction. Doubting is there. If things are doubted, then there is an act of doubting. If then means implication. If things are doubt, if everything is doubted, then there must be an act of doubting. If there is an act of doubting, then there must be a doubter. If there is a doubter, then there must be a thinker. If there is a thinker, then that thinker must exist. I exist. If I exist, then my existence must have a cause, because every event must have a cause. Then who can be who can be the cause of my existence? Who can be the cause of my existence? Nothing finite can be the cause of my existence. So something infinite must be the cause of my existence. So that is God. So if I exist, then God exists. If God exists, then world exists. These are all deductions. That means we in Descartes' philosophy, we find world after a series of deductions. Doubting, thinking, thinker, I exist, then God exists, then world exists. Descartes has beautifully explained this by this through this deduction. What does it mean? It means what is time now? It is okay. I shall conclude another 5 minutes. Okay. So, 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 the- so, so, so through this deduction, through this deduction, Descartes established the existence of self, established the existence of a God, established the existence of the world around us. Through this deduction, what does it mean? Descartes says, to speak of everything, we do not need to go to the external world. Philosophy should be like that. Rationalism should be like that. Put myself into jail. Put myself in a confined room. And I do not see the light outside. I am in a dark room. I am in a dark room. And from that dark room, I can establish my existence, the existence of a God and the existence of a world by the deduction, because in that dark room, no world is there, no God is there, but my mind is there. I am there. It is purely Advaita. Descartes is a dualist. Descartes is a dualist. But I shall say, so far his method is concerned, it is purely Advaita. Rejecting everything, neti. He comes to the conclusion that in a dark room, even if you put me in a dark room, there is no God, no world, nothing else, then but I have everything. I have my own existence. I have the existence of a God, existence of world. So when in the beauty of a deduction is that whether your thinking is correct or not, whether your implication is correct or not, correct means valid or invalid. That matters. Okay. Now, so I love Descartes. I love Descartes because I really, my favorite philosopher is Descartes. Descartes and Kant. When I have a session, I have a talk on Kant. When I shall discuss that, I shall say why I love Kant. Because Kant and Descartes are two philosophers who have uh, who have made a revolution in philosophy. Have you heard the word Descartes dialectic? No. But there is a dialectical method in Descartes to me, as I have understood Descartes, because you see the dialectic here. If you really want to accept something clearly, okay.
Pramod
And,
sir, Pramod
okay,
sir.
5 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. If you really want to accept something, then you should have that courage to reject everything. And by rejecting everything, when you fail to reject the source, then you get the real source of your rejection or acceptance. In that process, by doubting everything, Descartes reached at a point that the doubter cannot be doubted. Therefore, I think from the premise, I think it is it can be said that I exist. Cogito ergo sum. So, what was our topic? Our topic was universal doubt. That I said that yes, doubt is universal. Doubt is universal means impartially we can accept everything which can be doubted. There is no partiality while we are doubting. Second thing is, in the process of doubting, we came to the conclusion that the doubter cannot be doubted, and that is myself. So the self exists. Cogito ergo sum. From this fundamental truths, Descartes Descartes established the existence of a God and the existence of a world. And in the next sessions, um, we shall discuss that how God exists, how world exists, and Descartes meditations tomorrow. Thank you.
Hello, 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 Professor. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Very clear understanding. Okay, very clear understanding and a conceptual clarification on the philosophy of decades. Professor Pramod, you are discussing that human thought should be clear and distinct like mathematics. Today, your presentation is very clear and very lucid also. You have conceptually clarified everything, no doubt in it. Okay, so my ovation to you, the way you have clarified and discussed the philosophy of with the philosophy of decades. Now, your lecture and your discussion is open for a question answer session. Now, may I request Dr. K. Omnan Rao to moderate the interactive session. Over to Dr. Rao.
Thank
Over
you,
to Dr.
sir.
Rao.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. So I thank Professor Pramod Das for a very nice presentation on the method of doubt. So we have some questions in the chat box. So I am taking those questions for discussion. Okay. So we seek answers from the expert speaker. The first question is by Nanda Ghosh. He says, world has a number of contradictions. We come across a number of contradictions in the world, and we cannot avoid those contradictions, and we need to take them to be real. Well, it is his opinion. Okay, so but Descartes wanted to be free from all sorts of contradictions. Now, is it so? If Descartes want to free from all sorts of contradiction, how would it be possible to grasp the real nature of the world? Because he assumes, the question arises that assumes the world has contradictions and they constitute a reality of the world. So how should Descartes think of removing those contradictions? If he removes those contradictions, how can the real nature of the world be understood? Pramod sir. Sir, please unmute. Sir, Pramod sir, please unmute. Pramod sir, please unmute. Huh?
Okay. Okay. We can see the contradiction. We can see the contradiction when our mind is free from contradictions. An uncontradicted mind can see the contradictions. Thank you. Thank you.
So he has another question, the question that follows from the first question, it seems. So he says, is it necessary that the intuitive knowledge should be free from all sorts of contradictions? Well, you have answered it, but still, if it is done, he says, in some way the liveliness of our life may be lost.
No, the question is what he asked. The question is it necessary that the intuitive mind to be contradiction free? This is the question. The answer is yes. Yes, the intuitive mind should be contradiction free, or should be free from contradictions. Because in the intuition is the clear and distinct vision of the intellect. There is no chance of contradiction, and that mind can see the contradictions. This is the dialectic. When your mind is free from contradictions, then only you can see the contradictions outside. If your mind is contradicted, you are contradicted. You are the part of the contradiction. How can you see the contradiction? The doctor who is taking care of the patient himself is free from the disease. If the doctor, therefore I said, a doubting mount, if the doubter is doubted, then whatever he doubts will be cancelled, falsified. So that mind can doubt. That mind can doubt genuinely, which is free from doubts.
Thank you for your answer. So the next question is from Dr. Ratnakar Gajendra. He wants to know from you that Descartes, as a philosopher scientist, preserves the merits of science, and he wants to ascertain the things in philosophy to the level of certainty that we find in mathematics and science. But when he comes to the religious fold, as a religious man, he advances arguments to prove the existence of God. So how does Descartes arrive at a balance between these two, as a man of science, as a man of certainty, and coming to the religious fold, a man with a lot of uncertainty. So how is Descartesian method compatible with the scientific method, with the scientific views on one hand, and the religious ideas on the other? How is the balance maintained in Descartes?
Descartes was very much shocked. Descartes was very much shocked about the fact that at that time philosophy was considered useless because it was unscientific, it was speculative. Descartes, because Descartes was a scientist, because Descartes was a mathematician, he made philosophy scientific. So what is a scientific philosophy? Now when you come to the ground of philosophizing, philosophizing does not mean speculating. Just you speculate and you say that God exists, Brahma exists, Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya. These are just to speak this and you say Shankara has said no. First time Descartes at least tried, nobody tried. Descartes tried to make philosophy science because Descartes was very much shocked that philosophy is a useless subject. So Descartes made it useful. Descartes made philosophy significant. Descartes made philosophy scientific by introducing this method. He introduced such a method that there is no, till today, there is no even comment on Descartes' method. The second question is how he made a balance when he accepted the existence of God. In the very beginning of my speech, when I started my speech, I told how Descartes is similar with other philosophers. As other philosophers say, God exists, mind exists, body exists, Descartes also said that. In that context, Descartes has no novelty. Descartes said the same thing what others said. That is common. The uniqueness of Descartes is his method. So Descartes introduced a beautiful method that does not mean Descartes is free from conflicts. I personally do not agree with the interactionism or mind-body relation of Descartes. I appreciate Descartes' method. That method was good, but when he tried to make a relation between mind and body through pineal gland and spinal cord, I am not convincing. And when he said that God exists, that is also not so convincing. But so far as the method is concerned, that is the commendable credit of Descartes.
Okay, sir, you're clear. So let us move to the next question. Amrita Haldar, she wants to know why Descartes calls God as the deceiver of the world.
No, this question will be discussed in the next.
When we comes to okay. So we have another question from Ranjita Samantray. She wants to know whether the Descartesian method of doubt same as the psychological doubt. Well, it has been answered in the chat. Well, it has been answered in the chat box itself from say Ayodhya Kinkar Kavi, that they are separate. Okay. So what is your position?
Descartes' doubt is not psychological doubt. Descartes' doubt is the logical doubt or mathematical doubt. Psychological doubt means a husband doubts wife, a wife doubts husband. Um, doubting, sometimes doubting is a psychological disease. Many people's doubts for the sake of doubt. Even skeptics doubt. Descartes' doubt is not a skeptic doubt. Descartes' doubt is not a psychological doubt. Descartes doubts to get certainty. Descartes' doubt is a method. Okay, that is a logical method. That is a mathematical doubt. Mathematical method. It is deductive by nature. Descartes doubted everything to reach at the certainty. From
Okay, sir.
the psychological doubt, we do not get any conclusion, only frustration. From the logical doubt, we get a conclusion that yes, if everything is doubted, the doubter cannot be doubted. But in psychology, if doubt ends in frustration. Okay. Next question.
So let us move to the next question. It is by he wants to know. Descartes. He says Descartes is the prime mover of many problems in philosophy. Do you agree?
Descartes.
Descartes is the prime mover of many problems in philosophy. He is the cause of many problems in philosophy. Do you agree?
This question is a vague question. Why? What does it mean? I don't understand this question. Descartes is the
Maybe
prime.
he's
This,
maybe he has problems with the mind body problem and
I,
those maybe
no, no,
maybe.
no, no, no. That problem with others, mind body problem,
Hmm.
the dualistic problem is also with Plato.
It is
It is
there.
also with the Sankhya system.
Hmm.
So
So
problems
it
will
has
be
not.
there.
First of all,
But
the question writer
we,
has to clarify what sort of problems they does he mean
no, no,
by that.
no, no.
What sort of problems?
No, no. I clear that. I clear that. What is the credit of Descartes? What is the contribution of Descartes? Descartes' contribution is that if you are interested in philosophy, then first of all, discipline your minds. Discipline your mind. I also appreciate Locke, John Locke, who said he's an empiricist, but he has cultured his mind. He said that mind is a tabula rasa. Same thing. What an empiricist say, mind is a tabula rasa. What a rationalist say, that everything can be doubted. And in Vedanta philosophy, when we say neti, neti, if we think deeply, they are saying the same thing. That if you want to philosophize, if you are really interested in philosophy, have a philosophic mind. A philosophic mind is not a follower. Is not confined to his preoccupied thoughts. That should be free mind. That must be enriched by the free pursuit of thought and wisdom. Pursuit should
Okay,
be free. Pursuit should be free.
okay, sir. Okay. Next, I find a very good question by Swarna Prabha Biswal. Very nice question. As I feel, well, I don't know how you respond to that. Actually, we have the dictum by Descartes. I think, therefore I exist. Okay. So the problem that comes to her mind is those who don't think they don't exist. So she is deducing this from I think, therefore I exist. From that she deduces those who don't think or can't think they don't exist. Now the next thing that she asks, she wants to know is that the objects of the world cannot think. So what about the existence of the objects of the world?
Yes, yes. Objects, forget objects. Forget objects. Forget the world. Does my body thinks? Does my body think? No. My body does not think, but my body exists. Forget the building, roads, trees, sky, sun, moon. Forget. I have my mind and I have my body. My mind thinks and body does not think. But body exists. Body exists, but body does not think. The point is, I exist and I think that I exist. Body exists, but body does not think that body exists because body is not conscious. Okay, so whatever is conscious, that can think of his existence. Here, existence and consciousness are interconnected. So Descartes proves the existence of self from the thinking of the self, and from the thinking of self, we can prove that God exists and world exists. It is not necessary that my body exists and the body should think that body exists. Okay. I am saying another sentence. Um, who doubts? Who doubts? My body does not doubt its existence. The tree does not doubt that the existence of tree. Doubt. I doubt everything. That doubts
Hello.
that must exist in order to think. If I do not exist, I cannot think. Hello.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, sir,
Hello.
we are back by time.
Just one more question we may take.
Sir, we are back by time.
Okay. The last question. One question we may drop because the question is by Renu Sundara. He says he's asked whether doubting and thinking is the same. Well, we should not take. It can be answered. One thing that a very good question. This is the last question. So he says, Sasmita Biswas, he wants to know that from thinking to existence that we go for the self. So the existence of the self is established by I think, therefore I exist. But he says, but God is the creator. But here, what Descartes does is, after establishing the existence of his own self, he tries to establish others, the existence of the world, and also he advances arguments to prove God. So he wants to have a clarification: who is prior, whether the self is prior or the God is prior in this creation, or in the, God is prior to the self, or the self is prior to God. This is the last question.
Self is prior to God epistemologically. God is prior to self. Self means the knower. I. God is prior to world or self ontologically. So when we start thinking, we start from epistemological standpoints. So here self comes first. But when we discuss the existence in order, then God comes first. Hello.
Okay, sir. Thank you for replying, responding to the questions in a very nice manner. Now over to Professor Dr. Kailas Mahana sir for
Uh,
carrying on the session further.
no, please, no, please. Purpose vote of thanks. Okay, then we move.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
I should thank Professor Pramod Kumar Das for presenting his lecture very nicely in a very clear manner, in a systematic manner, and it has put forth, brought in a number of valid questions, and the response that he has showed to the questions is encouraging. We all are benefited by the entire session on the universal doubt of Descartes. So, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your contribution to the philosophy family. Now, over to Dr. Kailas Mahana, sir, for carrying on, for initiating the next session.
Okay, thanks so much, Professor Rao, for beautifully moderating the session. Now we have to move to the second session, where our speakers is waiting us. Today we have with us today we have with us the esteemed professor Dr. Basant Kumar Das, who has worked for more than 30 years in different government colleges of Odisha. In the second session, Dr. Basant Kumar Das will deliver that is his topic on the philosophy of Rene Descartes and concentrated upon the Descartes' concept of God, mind, and body. And Dr. Das has been invited to philosophy family many times to reflect and share his philosophical understanding to the students and teachers of philosophy of our country. Philosophy family is indebted for his contribution to teaching and learning philosophy. And Dr. Das, started teaching in different government colleges. He has moved to different government colleges and shared his teaching and contributed his philosophical experience, teaching experience in different government colleges, and he retired in the year 2018 from Ramadevi Women's College, where he was also acting uh, a deputy registrar and in the new university. Professor Das was also acting as the head of the department and assistant registrar of the said university. Recently, he owned his doctoral degree from North Odisha University on the topic and evaluated study of Swami Vivekananda's ideas on universal religion under the guidance of Dr. Krithivas Sahu. Dr. Das has participated in a number of national seminars and international seminars as symposiast and sectional president. And he has also participated in Indian Philosophical Congress and also Philosophy Association as a sectional president. He has organized a number of national seminars in collaboration with UGC and ICPR. He has edited and written a couple of philosophy books for the cause of students of philosophy. He has contributed a number of research articles which are already published in different periodicals, journals of philosophy. Today, with this, it is my honor and privilege to welcome and invite Dr. Basant Kumar Das to deliver his lecture on the concept of God, mind, and body, as per his understanding on Descartes' philosophy is concerned. Okay, pranam, sir. Okay, pranam, sir. I welcome you to speak on your topic, sir. Welcome, sir. Over to Dr. Basant Kumar Das, sir. Hello. Over to Dr. Basant Kumar Das, sir. Sir, welcome. Sir, Basant, sir, welcome, sir. Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir, you audible.
Welcome, sir. Basant, sir. Basant, sir.
Okay.
Welcome, sir. Sir, pranam, sir.
Okay.
Sir, please start your speech.
Am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Yes. Network problem is also there. Now, all my dear friends and elders, my namaskar to all. Now, I have to start where Pramod was left. He has therefore given the foundation, and now I have to erect the building. And as you know, Descartes started from universal doubt, just for the sake of the certainty in the field of knowledge. Then, step by step, he therefore ultimately proved that the self exists, then the God also exists as the ultimate reality, and the empirical world we experience, that is also real, that exists. And again, from that he went to prove the existence of the substance and the body, mind, and that therefore constitute the whole pyramid of Descartes' philosophy. So therefore, here I will start that before going to his concept that God, that what is God and how the God concept is being proved by Descartes, we have to start from his the criteria of truth. As you already know, the criteria of truth which follows from his cogito ergo sum, with the help of which he proved that I exist because I am the doubting self, and that is very clear and distinct, and therefore it is beyond any sort of doubt, and that's why that constitutes the very criteria of truth. Anything that is clear and certain and distinct, that is true. And therefore, here his principle is anything that is clear and distinct, that is true, or clearness and distinctness is regarded as the criterion of truth. What is in this clearness? Clearness means the idea is clear, must be present to the mind, open to the mind, and also must attend to it. There must not be any doubt here, it is therefore clear. Similarly, what is distinct then? Now it is distinct which is precisely determined so that it may not be confused at any point of time. It is therefore distinct. That is therefore the very criteria of truth. And from that, he then moved to point out there are three different types of ideas which you have. And there, you know, all of this, that is adventitious ideas, which are derived from our outside with the help of our senses, like smell, taste, color, etc., etc. Second is fictitious ideas, which is our own creation, that is therefore the fiction of mind. And the third one is more important, and that is known as innate or inborn ideas. And these ideas are there in the mind. And I am not discussing it in detail because of shortage of time. But this innate idea, therefore, refers to God and other things. But God, therefore, is an innate idea according to Descartes. Therefore, taking the idea God as an innate idea, then he tried to prove the existence of God. And here, for Descartes, God is being taken as the eternal, omniscient, omnipotent, and source of all goodness and truth. He is creator of all beings and all things also. For Descartes, this innate idea, that is the God, is therefore the most important, and from this he therefore will proceed to other. And here he has proved the existence of God with the help of two arguments. One is known as the causal argument, and the second one is known as the ontological argument, and they are respectively also known as a posteriori and a priori, a priori arguments. What is this causal argument? And causal argument is having two different forms. One, that is from the idea of God, by the causal nexus or causal principle, he could prove that God exists. And the other one is from the existence of one's own self, that is I exist, from which also he proved that God also exists as the cause of my own existence. And coming to the ontological argument or a priori argument, here he tried to prove the existence of God from the very idea of God, because for him the idea God and the existence God, they are necessarily related. This is how he has given the argument, and I have to give the arguments in detail. And coming then to the causal proof, here it is based on a causal principle. What is the principle? And almost all we know very well, that the cause must contain at least as much reality as the effect. Or in other words, cause and effect, they must be identical in respect of reality. That effect can never be more real than the cause. This is the principle on which the causal argument is based. Here it is having two forms. I already have told you that we all possess the idea of God, that he is the most perfect being, he is omnipotent, he is omnipresent, he is Pajaswi, like this. All these questions, all the God idea which we possess, that therefore contains all these attributes. And now the question is, where from this idea come? And since everything related in a causal nexus, therefore nothing can said to be without having cause, because you know causal relation is ex nihilo nihilo fit, that everything has a cause. We cannot say that there is something without cause. And if that is the case, then what is the cause of this God? It is true that the finite and imperfect being like myself, I myself is the imperfect being, and other objects can never be the cause of such an idea who is infinite and absolute perfect being. Hence, the cause of such an idea must be nothing less than a perfect being who is therefore nothing but God. So therefore, my existence is not caused by anything less perfect than God, and therefore it is God who is the most perfect being. He therefore is the cause of myself. This is one form of argument of causal argument. In the second form of causal argument, he proves that is very much interesting, and here he derives the existence of God from the very fact of his own existence. He argues like this: if there were no God, then from whom could I derive my existence? Now here there are three possibilities. What are they? They are just like I myself be the cause of my own existence, or my parents may be the cause of my own existence, or less perfect than God may be the cause of my own existence. Let us try to evaluate all the three different possibilities. In the first place, I myself can never be the cause of myself. Why? Because in that case, I would have been the ever perfect being, because I am the cause of my own self. That means I am causa sui, and therefore I will become God. Am I God? No. Therefore, I can never be the cause of my own existence. Then coming to second possibility, then we can say my parents can be the cause of my own existence. Here we can really say our parents also cannot. They may be, so far the physical body is concerned, can be taken to be the cause, but not so far our mind or soul is concerned. So therefore, even though therefore we cannot say that our parents can be taken to be the cause of my own existence. And similarly, we can come to the third possibilities, that anything less perfect than God may be the cause of my own existence. But that is also not ruled out, because to hold this is to violate the law of causation. Because law of causation states the effect can never be more real than the cause. And here less real than God can never be cause of my own existence. And therefore here it violates the law, and therefore it cannot said to be the cause of my existence. And therefore here in the causal argument, in both the forms, he therefore tried to prove that the idea God which we possess, that is there in our mind, and therefore God exists as cause of my own existence. And coming then to the next, which is most important argument, known as ontological or argument, that here the idea God has not been taken as a effect whose cause is to be found out. Rather, and what happens then here, something that whose meaning, taking the God concept into account, and we try to, he has tried to prove the existence of God. And here he points out that in this argument, the existence of God is proved with the help of the relation of necessity between the idea God and existence God. This is very peculiar. You have to remember that here he has taken that the idea God and the existent God, they are necessarily related. They cannot be separated from one another. And that's why out of all ideas of my mind, the chief among the idea, that is the idea God. What is that? That is the being which is omniscient, omnipotent, and absolutely perfect. This is the most, this is the idea which I possess, and that is nothing but the idea of God. the existence of God, therefore, here follows from this idea, it follows that God exists as a perfect being. And this is therefore, he points out, is just like taking an example from our geometry. And he therefore points out how, just like in a triangle, as you know, which is having the defining characteristics, that are three sides being bounded by three straight lines, and also all the three angles, they are equal to two right angles. So here points out that just like the sum total of the three angles, which is equal to two right angles, and this follows necessarily. Similarly, from very idea of God, idea that is a perfect, most perfect being, and therefore is not, that is the idea of God, from which it follows necessarily that God exists. The most perfect being cannot be thought without at the same time thinking of him as actually existing. So therefore, thinking of him as an absolute being, and he doesn't exist, therefore he points out this contradicting terms. So therefore, since they are necessarily related, and therefore from their necessary relation, it follows that since I have the idea of most perfect being, that is the God, and that's why the God exists. And in this regard, you have to point out the idea of finite beings and their existence. This is not true. Finite beings, we may have the idea of finite beings, but that does not necessarily mean that they do exist. And this is not necessary lesson. And that's why here you can take an example that we can very well think of a sky flower. Does sky flower exist? It does not exist. But we can very well think of just a complex idea. So therefore, here, this is not the case, but only in case of God, who is the most perfect idea, and that his existence, therefore, they are necessarily related, and from this, it follows, and that is therefore known as the ontological argument. Here, he proved that God exists. And here we find there are certain criticisms which have been raised against him. Mostly, Descartes is being accused of copying Anselm. And here you can really say that this is not so, because Anselm's argument is something different, and his argument is something different. Anselm's proof makes the existence of God dependent on the thought of God. But in case of Descartes, it is reverse. How? He makes the thought of God dependent on his being. So, God cannot be thought apart from his existence, as he is esse or causa sui. And therefore, God is causa sui. He cannot be therefore thought of apart from his existence. This is how this criticism cannot stand. And we can take another criticism which are being raised by Kant. And Kant points out that is very much, this argument, particularly the ontological argument, is very absurd. Why? Because here, from idea of existence, we are passing to idea of existence. Sorry, from the very idea, we are passing to existence. This is very absurd. Why? He has given an example. So, for example, suppose I have an idea that I have 100 rupee in my pocket. But does it necessarily mean that I have also 100 rupees in my pocket? There may not be any money in my pocket. But therefore, here he points out that does not necessarily therefore imply that from idea we can proceed to existence. And here, this argument I think does not stand against Descartes, because Descartes has made it very clear that this can only be possible where both the ideas, they are necessarily related, like that of idea of God and his existence. And that's why here Kant's argument cannot therefore stand also. And now he proved the existence of God. The next task before him is to prove the existence of world, because we, the human beings, we experience the empirical world. So many things are there in the empirical world. With the help of our senses, we do experience it. Whether this empirical world exists or not, Therefore, this is a task before him. Now he will go to prove the existence of the world. Before that, he has pointed out that God is having certain attributes. We shall discuss later on that he talks about attributes and modes. And here points out the God possesses certain attributes like that of he is one, not many, and he can also be said to be the self-caused or causa sui. Otherwise, that will lead to the fallacy of infinite regress. And similarly, he is being conceived as eternal, absolute, infinite, omniscient, omnipotent, like this. And he is the creator of everything, the whole universe. And he is not also having a body which can perceive with the help of our senses. And the most important attribute which he possesses is that he is veracious. His veracious means he is truthful. He never deceives anybody. Most often we are being deceived by our senses. But God, who is the creator of everything, including this empirical world, he never deceives anybody. And therefore, he, from this veracious nature of taking that as a clue, then Descartes tried to prove the existence of the world. And he has advanced the arguments like this, that according to him, whatever ideas God has implanted in our mind, and anything that follows from these ideas, therefore they are very much distinct, they are very clear because it's God's creation. And therefore, they cannot be subject to doubt. So therefore, they are clear. They are also objectively true because God is veracious and God has implanted these ideas in our mind, and since he is truthful and does not deceive anybody, therefore we are not being deceived by these ideas because they are there in our mind implanted by God. Thus, this veracious nature of God, therefore this attribute of veracity is having a special importance for Descartes because he provides, as I already told you, this provides the clue to prove the existence of the world. That we know, Descartes was in search of the valid and certain knowledge, as already I have discussed. Then he started doubting everything, that is universal doubt. Then he proved the existence of the self, and then he proved the existence of God. The next the task is therefore the existence of world, as already we told you, which is we experience. And therefore he advanced this argument in this way. Descartes notices certain advantageous ideas like the color, taste, smell, etc., which are impressed upon us, and they are also independently of our will. That means here we find some advantageous ideas, some also relational ideas, like that of your position, size, distance, etc., and etc. They are therefore subject to change, variable. But besides these variable ideas, there are certain ideas which are therefore invariable, and this therefore constitute the very essence of the substance of things. And here he points out these attributes are therefore known as attributes. Therefore, he has made a distinction between attribute and mode. Attributes therefore refers to the essential qualities which are inseparable from the object, from the thing, or from God even, and the qualities which are therefore, or ideas which are subject to change, and therefore they are known as the fleeting modes. They cannot therefore permanent or therefore here, taking it into account, he points out we do believe that both these variable and invariable ideas, that is known as the mode and attributes, and are caused by the bodies which are external to us. So therefore the objects of the empirical world which we come across, and these ideas we also find that these ideas are of two different types. One is therefore essential, or they are known as attributes, and other is known as the fleeting, changing, variable, therefore they are known as modes. But the question arises here, how can we prove this existence, that the empirical world exists, the objects of empirical world exist, which you come across having attributes or say to say the modes? We cannot rely on their existence through our senses. Since we see these with our senses, is it the plea to say that they are certain, they exist? No, not at all, because our senses most often deceive us. You know it very well. Now, at least it is quite clear and distinct to us, and we have a strong inclination to believe that there is an external world, and that is the consists of material bodies, and that exist outside of us. If these ideas do not come from external bodies, then they are caused either by the self. But then the question is, where from this idea come? These ideas come. And therefore, here the possible reply is that if they are not come from the external bodies, then they are caused either by their own self or by God. But in each case, we find that that is in one case, own caused, self caused, or by caused by God. And then we find the God would be a deceiver. Why? Now, because we clearly and distinctly perceive them, and they do originate from the external bodies. So there must be an external. We know anything that is clear and distinct, so therefore that is true. And taking that into account, here he points out that we clearly and distinctly perceive that these ideas, they are therefore come from the objects which are outside us, and therefore they are not being created by the by self, by themselves, nor by God even. So they do exist. So there must be an external world corresponds to our clear perception, and because that is based on the veracious nature of God, and God cannot allow us to believe in delusion. We cannot therefore delude it. God has therefore given us this particular, God is veracious, and we clearly and distinctly find out that objects of empirical world, therefore the ideas which we get from them, therefore they have come from this, and that enables us to prove or to establish that they are not created by themselves nor created by God. They are very much clear and distinct to us, and therefore they exist, and therefore the empirical world exists for us. This is how he tried to prove the external world, and that therefore comes from the very veracious nature of the God. And here he is also being criticized. Some critics are on the opinion that Descartes has committed the fallacy of arguing in a circle. And you know very well that this is not an argument in a circle. And here we come across, we find a particular philosopher named as Edman. He has given a better defense to Descartes. And he points out that in order of existence, God comes first, then comes truth. But in the order of knowledge, truth comes first and then comes God. So therefore, truth and God, they are not therefore taking that one depends on other and vice versa. So that is therefore not the case. This is not a circular definition fallacy, and therefore in the order of knowledge and order of existence, and therefore they do differ, and that's why it is not fallacious. And with this proof, now they come to the concept of substance. The substance, as he has defined, that which is self-dependent or self-existent, or which is not being caused by anything else, it is causa sui or self-caused. And in this sense, as already I have discussed, that refers to God. God is the substance which is self-dependent, self-existence, doesn't depend on anything else, and therefore it is a God. And again, he talks about the relative substances. That means he has made a distinction between absolute substance and relative substance. God therefore refers to absolute substance, and here he points out what is relative substance. The relative substance is that which depends on God for its existence. That means they are not having independent existence, they are dependent on God. and that's why they are known as relative substances. And here, these two, he talks about two relative substances. One is body, other is mind, or one is matter, other is mind. And here, he points out these two are independent to each other. Not only independent, they are also absolutely opposite to each other. How? Now, body is having the sense of extension, and the mind is having the sense of thought. So therefore, mind is conscious, body is having extension, that is movement, and that's why they are opposed to, diametrically opposed to each other. They cannot be said to be same. Body is never without extension, and mind therefore without any thought or consciousness. Both are opposed to each other. Since mind can never extended, and body therefore cannot be conscious. Thus, body and mind constitute the extended substance and thinking substance, being independent of each other. One is therefore extended substance matter or body, and the other is therefore known as the thinking substance, that is therefore the mind. They are therefore opposed to each other, they are different from each other, they are independent to each other. So now the question is, so therefore here talks about three substances. One is absolute substance and two relative substances. One is conscious substance, that is your mind, other is extended substance, that is your body. Now we come across a problem. The problem is, on this dualistic position, it is therefore impossible to have the real relation between mind and body, which are diametrically opposite to each other. This is a fundamental question. If mind and body, they are opposite to each other, how can they be related? As a matter of fact, we find the interaction between mental consciousness and physical activities, particularly in man, because man possesses both mind and body, who is therefore complex of both. So now this is a problem before him, and you know very well he has tried to reply it. And here Descartes faces the problem that if body and mind are opposed to each other, then how do they experience the interaction between them? Who? Man. Because man is a complex of both body and mind, so therefore how such interaction takes place in case of man. So therefore here, in order to resolve this problem, this is definitely a dualistic problem, and therefore in order to defend his own position, Descartes therefore takes the help of the pineal gland. You all know it very well. And therefore he points out the intervention of this pineal gland, the relation between this body and mind therefore takes place. And how this takes place? And here he points out like this, that body affects the sense organ. Body affects sense organ means, here suppose a mosquito bite is there, so therefore you get a bodily pain, and therefore that affects your sense organ, and immediately then the bodily affection moves the animal spirit, which are subtle nature. They are very subtle, and therefore moves the nerves, and that again tends to terminate at the point of pineal gland. And it is believed that pineal gland is a gland which is there on the brain cavity, and therefore due to the intervention of this pineal gland, we get the information from the very physical activity. Now, which therefore in this way we get the consciousness, or we become conscious that a mosquito is there, and therefore I have some pain in this way. Reversely, in case of mind, what happens? Reversely, mind also acts on the body by moving the animal spirit in the pineal gland, which passing through the muscles then leads to the bodily movement. So therefore, body gives information, physical activity, that therefore with the help of that that is your animal spirit, that therefore tends to the pineal gland, and then pineal gland with the help of that animal spirit again gives information to your mind, and mind become conscious of it. And reversely also, through pineal gland also, we get the physical activities performed with the instruction of the mind. This is how he tried to prove the explain the relation between mind and body, which is known as interactionism. And this is very much will be criticized, as you know very well. Let me give some criticisms. And here, to my mind and to others also, you can well say the concept of pineal gland is a misnomer, because modern science has already proved there is no such gland under the brain cavity or in the brain, and therefore such brain pineal gland concept is a vague concept, or it is a misnomer, and therefore just to save his own position, he has therefore tried to explain this with the help of pineal gland. And also another important problem here arises, this he is being criticized as double dualist. Double dualist in the sense, he at the first points out there is two substances are there, one is absolute, other is relative. Absolute is God, relative are therefore dependent on God. And again he classified the related substances in two, that is your body and mind, and therefore it is therefore known as double dualism. And because of double dualism, he therefore paved the way to his successor, and therefore we find Spinoza, who has therefore started his philosophy taking the clue from the Descartes philosophy. You know it very well. And here we know that if you go through Ryle's concept of mind, he has very much criticized this, that it is Descartes' dogma in the ghost in the machine. Dogma of the ghost in the machine. And here category mistake he talks about, that he has failed to understand the committed as category mistake, and therefore this is not so. And this is therefore the defects in his interactionism, body-mind concept. Another important thing I also point out, what it is found, all dualistic, we can very well say, in all dualistic position, one has to land in frustration. That means he cannot explain the reality in clear concepts, and therefore that is the fate with Descartes. As you know very well, in case of Sankhya in Indian philosophy, that he talks about this Prakriti and Purusha, and in evolution we find whatever way they try to explain the relation, the evolution with the help of Prakriti and Purusha, ultimately they have landed with problems. And therefore, in similar way, here also Descartes has landed. Now, you may raise a question that if all this is the case, then is there no merit in Descartes' philosophy? Yes, definitely. We cannot deny it. And as you know very well, you know Bacon, who has started his philosophy with his theory of method, inductive method, and you know his theory of ideology. Ideology are the blind faith or blind beliefs, and he therefore pointed out that these blind faiths are to be removed from mind so that new ideas will come. Just like that, here Descartes started doubting everything for the sake of certain knowledge, because he found that all knowledge are subject to doubt. They cannot be taken as such. So therefore, he doubted, and that therefore is the starting point of philosophy, critical thinking, certain knowledge, clear knowledge, distinct knowledge. And therefore, here we find that that is the case with Descartes, and therefore Descartes is being considered as the father of modern philosophy. Not Bacon, it is Descartes who has given a systematic, he has started a systematic philosophy, and that's why he's being considered as the father of modern philosophy, modern European philosophy. And as I know very well that Descartes is also a rationalist. He's a founder of rationalism. That mind is therefore the source of knowledge. That all knowledge is derived from mind. This is reasoning, and that is rationalism, and that is he's the founder. That is credit goes to him. And in also you can say he postulated free inquiry. in the domain of philosophy, free inquiry, that this is the very fundamental feature of philosophy, that you must be free under compulsion, under certain force. You cannot think that human beings, they are conscious being, they do have this free thought, and therefore one must have enjoy access to his freedom of thought, and therefore that is the credit which goes to him who has pointed out this. And his search for certain knowledge, he was in search of certain knowledge, clear knowledge, distinct knowledge, and that is the credit. Really, he lands, and therefore that is really a landmark in philosophy, which is therefore influenced his lateral followers. As already told you, that his followers, successors like Spinoza and others, and they have therefore got the plea, or they have got the their starting point from him. And here Spinoza, as you know very well, that he has nothing new, but he has tried to put the philosophy of Descartes in a systematic way, and therefore it is being said that Spinoza made Descartes consistent. The inconsistencies, particularly these two particular inconsistencies, double dualism and this mind-body relation interactionism, which therefore is not well explained by Descartes, that therefore is well explained by his successor, that is Spinoza, and therefore this is, in this way we can conclude that Descartes definitely is a great philosopher. He has given a new direction to philosophy, particularly during this modern time, and at the present, the philosophy which now we are carrying out, that therefore has its root from Descartes, and therefore our salute to him. Thanks to all for your patient listening. Thanks.
Okay, thanks so much, sir. Excellent presentation on the philosophy of Descartes. Thanks so much for your brilliant exposition on mind, God, mind, and body. Sir, actually, in this evening webinar, you have clarified all the basic concepts of Descartes, and you have also explained everything so far as your understanding of Descartes is concerned. Now your paper, your presentation is open for discussion. May I now request Dr. K. Omdana Rao for moderating the question answer session. Over to Dr. Rao.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dr. Vasandas, sir, for your nice presentation. Now, I find a number of questions in the chat box, so I'm taking those questions.
Yes.
Now, Sasmita Bisoi, she takes a question from the ontological argument. Okay, so
Yes.
well, you have answered that, but still she wants to wants you to substantiate on this. So, from idea to existence in the ontological argument. So, what exactly is the
Yes, sir.
basis for such an
Yes.
argument?
I have already told that we are having Descartes try to prove the existence of God from the very idea of God. The idea of God, which we possess, according to Descartes, that he is the most perfect being. Most perfect in the sense that he is absolute, one, infinite, he is cause of everything. And from this idea, the question is, where from this idea we get? This idea we cannot get from anything else other than the existent reality. And here he tried to point out that idea God and existent God, they are necessarily related. As he has given an example in geometry, that when to talk about triangle, and know in a triangle there are three angles, and all the three angles are equal to two right angles. If somebody asks three angles of a triangle, it immediately implies that the sum total of all the three angles is equal to 180 degree or two right angles. And therefore, here, how are they related? And they are related necessarily. That is a necessary lesson. You know it very well. That is a contingent and necessary lesson. And here, this relation is a necessary lesson. Just like the sum of three angles is equal to two right angles, the equal two right angles follows necessarily from this, or they are so necessarily related. Similarly, the idea God and the existent God, their relation is necessary. We cannot therefore have this idea God who is therefore one, absolute, infinite, without being a God existent. Since we are having this idea that this the reality is a perfect being, is who is the most perfect being, and he is therefore real, he is a cause of everything, he is absolute, and that therefore idea therefore necessarily give rise to that he must exist. Otherwise, we could not have this idea.
Thank you. Well, there are a number of issues, problems linked with this idea of the ontological argument. We cannot avoid those criticisms for advanced against the ontological argument. We have another question by Manaswini Patnaik. It's again on the ontological argument. She wants to know what is the difference between the ontological argument put forth by Saint Anselm and the ontological argument as suggested by Rene Descartes.
Yes, sir.
What are the differences that you see?
In Anselm's argument, as already we told you, that just a minute. In Anselm's argument, already I have pointed out and he has pointed out in Anselm, no, the argument is not with exactly with me, but the spirit of the argument is this, that the existence of God is dependent on the thought of God, that I do think of God. Since I am thinking of God, therefore their God exists. So therefore here he proved that God exists because I think of it, not as a reality which is absolute, infinite, and all these things. So therefore, from he therefore tried to prove with this existent God that depends on the thought of it. But here Descartes points out that he differs from Anselm in this sense, that he points out the thought of God dependent on his being. His idea is there. Why? Because he is there. If God would not have been there, we could not have this idea. So therefore, we are having the idea God because God exists. Because from God's existence, we are having therefore idea. This is the difference. There, we are thinking about God, for which that God exists. We are thinking. But here, he points out the reverse way, that since God exists, therefore we are having the existence, consciousness of idea, the idea God. So therefore, here the difference is that the reverse way.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So we have a next question from Dr. Ratnakar Gajendra. He says Descartes, by his method of doubt, started doubting everything and came to a point where he finds that he cannot doubt himself as the doubting substance. Then he says, by this, he put forth the doctrine, say, I think, therefore I am. So he has established the self. After establishing the self, he made a transition to the establishment of God. And then he went on to establish the world. Now he wants to get an answer from you whether this transition that we see in Descartes tenable. Is it right to have such a transition?
Yes, what is the problem?
The problem
that he could
the problem is actually Descartes has negated everything. He has doubted everything.
Yes.
On doubting everything,
Yes.
and he ended up as a doubting substance. So he should exist as a doubting substance. So he has established the
Yes.
self. On establishing the
Yes.
self, he started establishing the other things. Say he established the
Yes. Yes. Yes.
now he wants to know uh,
What happened? You are
is
not
such a
audible.
transition is such a transition acceptable?
Okay.
Am I audible now?
Yes. What exactly is the
Am I
problem?
audible now?
Now,
The problem is
uh,
now you got me or not? Is it audible now? Is it audible now?
audible.
Hello, is it audible? Is it audible now?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
now you're audible.
Now audible. Actually, Dr. Gajendra has a problem. He wants
You
to know.
please tell me the exact question. Exact question means what is his query? I do understand from his universal doubt, he proved the existence of self, then God.
Okay, okay. The problem is the transition from the self to God and to the world, is such a transition tenable? Is that acceptable? Do you
Yes,
see
yes.
any problem in that, or whether we can accept comfortably? That is the problem. That is the issue in him.
Yes, answer is yes. That what is the objective of Descartes? Descartes is having the objective that to establish certain knowledge. And that's why with that objective, he could started doubting, which is known as universal doubt or methodic doubt. And the purpose was to establish certain knowledge, not for sake of doubting. He's not therefore skeptic. And therefore, from his universal doubt, he got the ray of light, that is the hope, that the doubting self, that one who doubts, he at least conscious that he is doubting, therefore he cannot be doubted. Doubting is a function, is a mental function, it is a consciousness. And this consciousness, therefore, is being carried out by the doubter. Since the doubter is conscious that he is doubting, so therefore he cannot be doubted. Therefore, he is conscious that he exists, and therefore he proved that the self, the doubter, he therefore exists, since he undertake the function of doubting. And then he tried to prove other things, because he doubted that it doesn't mean he doubted means that does not exist, he denied it, but he was in search of the certainty. So therefore, by deductive method, rational method, then he tried to prove one after other. So therefore, next he proved the existence of God. And then from God he proved the existence of world. So therefore, self, God and world, that constitute the whole universe around us. And again he tried to prove the body-mind relation, substance and all these things. So therefore, the whole pyramid of philosophic pyramid of Descartes is therefore erected starting from universal doubt. And therefore, this is tenable. There is nothing difficult in it.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. The next question is by Nanda Ghosh. He says it's an observation sort of thing. He says history of philosophy shows that God is approved for many
I am
philosophical
not,
problems.
you are not audible. You are not audible to me.
Am I audible? Am I audible now? Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Am I audible? Nanda Ghosh, he wants to know, it's a sort of clarification he wants to seek from you. He says that history of philosophy shows that God is the escape route for most philosophers or many philosophical problems. So what is your take on this issue?
Yes,
How do you
yes.
see this?
Yes. That in philosophy, as you know, we undertake certain problems. And these problems we do address. And that therefore, the most important problems in philosophy is ontology and epistemology, and other problems are there. In ontology, that is reality. And therefore, most philosophers, they try to give a clear conception of the reality. And therefore, here God comes. And therefore, all the philosophers, as in Indian context, also in Western context, they do give their own understanding of the reality that is God.
Okay, sir. So the next question again, we have by Sasmita Biswai. She says that God is absolute, mind and body are relative substances dependent on God. Now, the existence of mind and body thus is dependent on God. But having said this, that mind and body are dependent on God for their existence, Descartes takes the human thinking to prove existence. So how do you see this problem?
Yes. That Descartes, he talks about the substance, and according to his definition, the substance refers to the self-existent reality, and that therefore God. Again, he talks about the two relative substances, body and mind, because in the external world we come across these physical and mental objects, and therefore he talks about the relative substances which are God dependent, and this is his understanding of the external world that consists of both matter and the consciousness. And he felt in his attempt that particularly in case of man, that mind and body, if they are accepted as independent and diametrically opposed to each other, therefore their relation can never be possible on principle. And that's why he faced the problem. And later on, that problem was being sorted out and being rectified by his successor. And therefore, here, I don't have any comment on it. This is Descartes' view or Descartes' idea of explaining the empirical world and God.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next question is again by Dr. Ratnakar Gajendra. He says the talk of the absolute substance is all right, but any talk of the relative substance is not acceptable, or it is much against the very idea of substance. What is your take on this?
Relative substance, as I already have told you, that relative substances are just pertaining to the empirical objects. It is not pertaining to that of the absolute reality. Absolute reality is God. That is the substance which can accept to be absolute substance, independent, etc., etc. But when we talk about the empirical world, which we come across, which we observe, we perceive, and therefore they do exist, and therefore he proved with the veracious nature of God that the empirical world exists. And to explain this empirical world, you come across the objects, and these objects or things, they do have the attributes and the modes. And taking that into account, again points out these material objects are there, and that is your mental consciousness is there. And therefore, in order to explain the empirical world, these two relative substances are being taken. And therefore, in contrast to absolute substance or reality, these two relative substances are therefore is accepted by Descartes only to explain the object of the empirical world, both physical and mental.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. This would be the last question. It is by Dr. Pragya Das Kanungo. She wants to know what is man for Descartes. She again raises, what is man, M-A-N, man. What is man for Descartes?
Man is a concept.
No, it is, the question is still on. Is he the soul, or the mind, or the body, or is he the union of mind and body? Then she again says, if man is the union of mind and body, what type of union is this? Is it like bringing two things together? So please have your observation on this series of questions.
Yes. This question must be in context of Descartes. The answer will be in context of Descartes, because I am discussing Descartes. But if I will be asked regarding the concept of man from other perspectives, Indian perspective.
She wants from the perspective of Descartes, from the perspective of Descartes.
Yes. Let us try to understand that Descartes points out that man is conscious. First, because he proved the existence of God, the existence of the self, that I am conscious, that I am doubting. Therefore, I do exist. Means I do have the consciousness of existence, that I am having a mind. And at the same time, the empirical objects also exist, and as a physical body I do have, so therefore I also exist. So therefore, I am means the man consists of both body and mind. Therefore, it is a body-mind complex. And here, this is his explanation of man. And but he fails to give the explanation pertaining to his own problem which have been created by him. That if man is consists of body and mind, that mind and body, they are altogether independent to each other, and they are independent in the sense there is no such of any sort of relation between the opposite to each other. There should not be any relation between these two. But we find, we the human beings experience that we are having the body and also mind, we are conscious of other things around us and inside us. So therefore, this problem could arise because of this, and therefore he tried to explain with the help of the interaction between mind and body, that is the help of pineal gland and all these things. But this explanation is not at all accepted or satisfactory, and therefore his explanation of man as a body-mind complex is a grand failure.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you for the responses. There are I see no more questions in the chat box. So over to Dr. Kailas Mahana, sir.
Before giving me
Thanks,
chance,
sir.
let
Okay.
me thank you all, Pramod Babu, Rao Babu, then Kailas Babu, and all those who are present in participating in the webinar. Each and every participant, I express my thanks.
Okay, sir. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I, on behalf of the philosophy family, thank you a lot for the nice presentation and the way you answered the questions. So it shows the clarity that you carry on Descartes and his ideas. So we are really thankful to you, and we see you to be present in the future seminars, webinars that are conducted by the philosophy family. I see you as a regular participant in the webinar series that are held. You are absent on no day. You are present every day. That shows how much committed you are for the philosophy family. Let this support be there for the philosophy family. I seek such sort of support from all the members of the philosophy family. It is only then the attempt that has been made by Professor Pramod Kumar Das to bring together the philosophers, the thinkers onto a common platform, discuss the ideas, so expand the knowledge, that would be really successful. Otherwise, it would be an ordinary affair. So
Yes,
the effort, what I see in Basant Kumar Das sir is actually he's committed to this webinar series. He's much supportive, and that's how he's very much helpful to the philosophy family. We see in him a man of great support to the family, and we look at him for calling him for further deliberations in various webinar series that we'll be conducting in the near future. Thank you, thanks a lot, sir, for your contribution to the family. I thank Dr. Kailas Das sir for coordinating this session. I also thank Dr. Professor Pramod Kumar Das for being the source of all the activities that are being carried by the philosophy family. So I also thank the participants for participating in large numbers and also asking interesting questions that and these questions really help us, every one of us, to think, to reflect something in a new manner. So I'm really happy with the entire course of events that are taking place in the philosophy family. You see the level of questions that are coming from the participants. So this shows the involvement of all concerned. I see a good future for the philosophy family. With this, I thank one and all in the family for being supportive to the webinar series, and I hope a good future for this webinar series and also for all the webinar series that are due to come in the future days. Thank you everybody. Have a nice evening. Thank you everybody.
Sir, our sincere thanks also goes to Okay,
Hey,
you,
I'm,
Dr.
I'm, I'm
Rao sir.
forgetting every time. I'm
Okay,
forgetting every time. Oh, the real contribution. Actually, Sri Devasis Sadangi, we should not
Devasi
forget him.
Sarangi.
We should
Okay,
not
okay.
forget Devasis Sadangi. He is the man who is recording the event. He
Yes,
is
yes,
putting the event in the YouTube,
yes,
and
yes, yes.
he is making this event live for all time. It is not just over. The seminar, this webinar is not over today. It is
Yes,
alive for all time to come. It is there in the YouTube now. So the sincere, my sincere, I may be, I may kindly be excused, Devasis. I'm forgetting you. I should not forget you. I should rather remember you for
Yes,
the
yes.
sincere effort that you are making in recording this event and making this event live in YouTube, and also making it available for the future use for everyone. So this way you are contributing a lot to the philosophy family. I thank you a lot. I thank you a lot, Devasis Sadangi. Okay, your efforts are being recorded, and your efforts are being very much appreciated by the philosophy family. Thank you, one and all in the philosophy family.
okay. Okay, many thanks to Dr. Rao for brilliantly and beautifully moderating the session. Our special thanks to Debasis uh, for his labor, for his constant endeavor, and for his commitment for the cause of philosophy family. Thank you very much.
Thanks you all.
Over to Debasis, please close the meeting.
Yes, sir.